All right, traders, we got some crazy updates to go over in terms of the price action of the SPY of the overall stock market. We're also going to be going over Facebook that had a massive sell-off due to earnings. We have quite a few stocks that we're going to be covering within this video. So do me a favor and smash that like button. Let's get right into the in-depth price action analysis. This is going to give you a better understanding on how to trade both ways, when to go long, when to be bullish, when to buy the call options, when to go short, when to be bearish, when to buy the put options. Let's get into it, guys. We got some very important micro price action updates along with some macro price action updates as the SPY had a serious move into the close and into after hours. So let's get right into the charts. So in terms of the SPY, there were two key things that I pointed out in my past two videos, speaking of this overall price action. So the first one was, we were expecting, due to the micro bullish move on SPY right around here on this second green day, it was looking like it was going to set up to retest that strong previous support that, reacted as a resistance level right here, and then it sold off to 420, right? Well, since it had that massive breakdown and that overreaction in such a short period of time, SPY was due, especially with this bullish green candle and breakout of channel, SPY was due for that retest of 456, and that was going to be the key macro level, meaning if you see this, key support level with nice upside potential react as a resistance level, that's going to confirm that the bears are still in control for the macro. And this was simply just a crack of support with a massive pullback. And it was simply just a retest of that previous strong support right here and right here. And if the bears can turn that into resistance, then that means that they remain in control of the macro price action. For the bulls to take control of the macro price action, they need to turn 456 into a support level, break out, and fill this gap. There was a gap to fill right here at 465. Heading into yesterday, I was still micro bullish on the SPY, expecting for this gap to fill within 1 to 2 weeks. Things did just flip though, and it's not like a shock due to this key price level, right? It's due for some sort of pullback with this massive run up from the 420s to 450s, another overreaction. But basically what you need to understand is for the bulls to take control for the macro, they need to turn 456 into support and break above that. If they can do that, it's going to fill the gap at 465. Now, for the bears to remain in control of the macro, they need to turn 456 into resistance. If not, then they definitely need to turn 465 into resistance. So as of now, in terms of some micro price action, this was the key level, that key 456. You could see it began to react as a resistance level as soon as SPY touched it, had a small little breakout, turned it into support right here. But heading into after hours is where the market began to have a massive sell-off into $453. So here's what I want you to understand in terms of the micro price action. So this is the bears right now stepping in for the macro at that key level, showing some, true signs of strength here. Now, for them to really show true signs of strength and for them to really continue this downtrend, here's what you're going to need to see happen. For this to be a true strength move, you're going to need to see this 453 break down and turn into resistance. If 453 cracks and turns into resistance, once that happens, the SPY is going to be on track to go back to around 447 very quickly. That would be the next micro level. Now, if 453 breaks out and it holds up, the SPY is going to be on track. Since it's having a nice little gap down here, the SPY is going to start to fill the gap. There is currently a gap that is waiting to fill above at the closing price right here, $457.35. So there's now a new gap to fill at $457.35. The gap fills quickly if the SPY can turn this into a support level and break out. So what I'm going to be looking for tomorrow in terms of a potential trade, so we're finally starting to see some signs of resistance on the SPY. This did just gap down, but it's still a little bit too fairly early. We need to give it a little bit more time to really determine who's taking control for the macro here at this current key level. But as of now, the bears are winning for the micro sense. But what we need to see is how it reacts to 453. And if it goes above that, what I'm going to be mainly looking for is the gap fill play. There's going to be a gap to fill at 457.35. If SPY pushes to 457.35 and it reacts as a resistance level, it starts breaking down, I'm going to look to grab some put options on the SPY and a couple of other stocks I've been interested in. And then we also have to see how it reacts towards this key breakdown. But mainly in terms of what I'm mainly doing right now is I'm mainly just interested in seeing how it reacts towards that gap fill play. Heading into tomorrow during power hour, if we do see a bearish candlestick on the daily, I will consider grabbing a put option for a swing trade. I will consider that, right? So I'm going to be a little bit patient, see if that new gap can fill at 457.35 as this is now gapping down during after hours. We'll see how it reacts. That's kind of the overall point of view on the whole SPY situation right now. So it's either make it or break it for the bulls. And what they need to do is they need to break above this 457.35, turn into support level. Once that can happen, they push for the gap fill at 465. Until then, and if the bears turn 453 into resistance, or if they turn the new gap at 457.35 to resistance, this is going to really start breaking back down to the lower 40s, to the lower 440s within some time for the micro. So that's the thoughts, that's the analysis on both ways in terms of the overall price action. I want to be a little bit patient and see how things react tomorrow. There could be a potential trade on this tomorrow, especially towards power hour. Now, just to go over a couple stocks, what I've noticed is there was a lot of stocks that actually did not follow the market in terms of today when it was ramping up. A lot of stocks were actually dropping, finding that very interesting, and that's just not a good sign moving forward. In terms of some, updates, Facebook had a massive gap down into earnings. This went all the way down to 249. Remember, I told you guys with PayPal, don't buy PayPal. It's going to go lower within a month. Within a month, I was expecting this to go into the 120s. One day later, it's already at 128. The volatility is unreal on this one. So yeah, that's definitely going to be dropping lower in the near future in terms of PayPal. In terms of Google, very, very interesting move here. You had the massive gap up, you had the new all-time highs, but it seems to be struggling, definitely due for some downside. In terms of, let's go over a few here. So SQQ, the inverse, it's attempting to come back. So with this one, for this to really continue to push, let's see, it's at $38.10. You had the nice move up in extended hours. So it's right here. What this needs to do is this needs to turn 38.55 into support. It needs to break above 38.55, turn it into support to really start to run back up. If it can do that, the SPY will get crushed. In terms of Neo stock, Neo's having a red day. So yeah, there's a lot of stocks that were red during the day while the SPY was pushing up. And let's take a look at after hours, and they started to follow in terms of after hours. That's when they really started to follow the overall market. It seems like Neo is still bearish. It looks like we're going to get a gap fill to 2090. Let's see, Shopify is still bearish. So yeah, things are really flipping. Things just flipped for stocks, and they flipped towards that key level I told you where, the bears were going to look to step in towards the macro, either 456 or 465, but the bears are already stepping in towards 456. So we'll see. Tomorrow's going to be an interesting, very important day to see how this reacts, because it happened during extended hours. So we do have to take it with a grain of salt. And we really have to see how things react towards market open, and most importantly towards power hour tomorrow. That's going to really set the tone for the rest of the week and for this whole sort of macro move coming up. In terms of, so yeah, Lucid is bearish. Lucid is going to fill the gap here at 27.15. If 27.15 cracks, you're going to want to grab a put option on Lucid. It's going to go a lot lower, so keep that in mind. 27.15 key breakdown for Lucid stock if it cracks. Triple BY. Let's see, did we downtrend during after hours? A little bit, not too much. This one, I'm just kind of keeping on the back burner for now. Macy's had a nice pullback. You guys know I've been bearish on that one. Robinhood is really starting to pull back, also down in after hours. So we are getting to about that point where I'm going to be extremely interested in playing a put option for a swing trade, give myself some time on this whole Robinhood. It's been basically 3 days where we're just kind of sitting towards key resistance. Today's the day where it's finally starting to break down, on track to gap down tomorrow. So in terms of Robinhood, 1402 would be the best price to buy a put option. So if you see this push back up to 1402 to fill the gap, that's going to be the best price for the gap close reversal if we see that pullback. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of Robinhood. That should be a phenomenal setup, as it has huge downside potential. Just a couple of days ago, this was at in the 980s, I believe. In terms of, so that's going to be a top watch. So yeah, they're all kind of following the SPY gapping down during after hours. Netflix, the best price to potentially short would be 457 if that could react as a resistance. Overall, it looks like we're gonna within some time go back to 387. So yeah, it does look like from an overall point of view, stocks are going to start going back down to fill their gaps. We could see a little bit chop, a little bit sideways in between that and some spikes, but overall, that's where it looks like they're heading. And it seems like the macro is starting to kick in on the SPY. As for Tesla, within some time, this should go back to fill the gap at 850, which would be one of the best prices for a quick scalp on a call. So we'll see how it reacts down there. AMC, man, AMC is looking very, very bearish. Like we discussed, this was going to fill the gap. It filled the gap, and then you guys know if it goes below the gap fill level, it's going to go a lot lower to the previous day's low candle. AMC really bearish. It looks like we're going to see the morning panic tomorrow. So, I mean, this is a little bit interesting. It's doing the same thing. So it topped out here. It topped out here. It had a breakdown. It had a breakdown. The next day, it opened up with a morning panic. Then it recovered. So we'll see. We'll see. The market can flip once again, right? This is just extended hours. So we'll see. If we see a morning panic and then AMC looks like this and the market's doing the same thing, that's a confirmation that the market will overall go higher if SPY can flip too and then fill that gap at 465. So we have to see. It's a little bit too early to tell. So this just hit 15. The key for AMC to continue to go down is it needs to turn 15 into a major resistance level and break down. And then it would need to crack this 1350. So 1350 would be a key level on that one. Overall, though, it is going to go lower. So yeah, that's the thoughts. That's the analysis. Other than that, it's just that's really what I'm mainly focused on. It's just kind of seeing how things react. I think within the next 1 to 2 days, there's going to be a good trade coming up. MSTR, I think that was that stocks. Yeah, MSTR. This had terrible earnings. This is most likely going to be going lower within some time, back to like 330s to 315. If we could push to 373, I think it'd be a great opportunity for a put if we see it react as a resistance level. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, where we're at in terms of the market. So just to like quickly recap this whole situation, SPY had a massive pullback once it cracked this key 456 support level. It quickly dropped to 420, which was an overreaction for the micro. But that's setting the tone for the macro that this is going to be overall bearish. And then it pushed back up to your previous support. And so far, that previous key support with nice upside potential is reacting as a resistance level. So if we can continue to see this 457 and then 453 breakdown, the bears are really going to step in for the macro and bring this back down to 440 quickly. Now, for the bulls to take control for the macro, they need to turn 457 into support, this new gap fill level here, and they would need to fill this gap and turn that into support at 465. So that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, in terms of key levels, if SPY breaks down below 453, we're on track for 447 fairly quickly. If SPY rises above 453, we're on track for the gap to fill at 457.35. Once the gap fills, if it reacts as a resistance level, the bearish macro is going to kick in, and it's going to be a big challenge for SPY to go up to 465 for the micro. Now, if 457 breaks out, turns into support for the micro, SPY is going to rip to 465, and then that's going to be the next key level where we'll see how it reacts. So in terms of what we're getting right now, we have 1 day. So this is the first day where SPY retested that key support level, right? So it's either make it or break it. Like the bears, they need to step in quickly for the macro. If not here, then here. And they really need to turn this into resistance. So as of now, this is day 1 of it reacting as a resistance level. Tomorrow it's on track to gap down. We'll see if it can be day 2 for it to react as a resistance level. If so, then things are going to be looking good for a macro situation within the next 2 to 3 days if we can continue to turn 457 to 453 into resistance. If not, and it turns into support, then SPY pushes to 465, which is going to be that next key level. So that's thoughts. That's the analysis on both ways. In terms of like overall markets right now, the price action has been fairly choppy and very weird towards market open to midday. It hasn't been the most ideal situation to really be trading in. So I've mainly just been sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the next best setup to come around, waiting for some strong confirmations. And it does look like we will be seeing something soon. So I'm just going to continue to be patient and continue to wait for the confirmations. But yeah, that's the thoughts. That's the analysis. I will keep you guys updated within the chat room, within Trader Society. If you are interested in checking out Trader Society, it is the first link down below in the description. I will see you guys tomorrow live at market open. And that's going to wrap up today's video lesson.